So can you talk about just a little bit about like who the the characters are and like the story and just kind of like what Foolish Mortals is about.
Okay, so the basic synopsis is that it's a merry and macabre point-and-click adventure game where you play Murphy McAllen, a young treasure hunter who doesn't have much of a past, but read about this haunted house treasure in a magazine that you start off with in your inventory and decided that if he doesn't have a past, this is his way to make his future. So you come to the island looking for the treasure, and one of the first things that you find out is that only the ghosts of the house know where the treasure is hidden. And so if you want to find out where the treasure is, you're going to have to ask the ghosts. And then a witch doctor in the bayou provides you with a voodoo manuscript, a spell that you can cast that's going to manifest those ghosts so you can ask them, but that's only the start of it.
Oh, okay, all right, yes. Some of that reminds me of other adventures. Obviously, like Monkey Island or something like that. It's kind of like going on a quest for the voodoo lady, a little bit, like collecting ingredients.
Yeah, well, that was quite conscious in that. So I think it's really hard nowadays to get into adventure games. I think because we have so little time to play them, that I wanted to kind of put hooks in that reminded you of older games, just so you kind of knew where you stood in the world. So yeah, a character asking you to find 5 voodoo ingredients is very Monkey Island.
Okay, does everything take place on this one island, called Devil's Rock?
That's right, yeah. It all takes place on the island, but we're constantly opening new locations. So it's the approach we kind of took with it was like Broken Sword with Paris. And as you play through the game, more and more locations get added. And that's what we wanted to do. So although you go back to the island in part 3, characters have moved around, new characters have come in, other characters have left, and things that were locked doors in part 1 become unlockable in part 3, so you can explore each of the places even more.
Yeah. The art style in particular that reminds me a lot of Broken Sword. Yeah, that's obviously a big inspiration. Right.
Yeah, graphically, what we aimed for was Broken Sword meets Monkey Island. So Broken Sword style line work meets Monkey Island style coloring, and we wanted to do that because although it is a cartoon, we didn't want it to be cartoony. We wanted you to feel like the world was real, like you were actually walking around a real island and seeing real skeletons and everything like that. And so that's kind of why we went for the very detailed perspective approach with it.
Okay, so when you say we, like how many people are involved in this production?
Well, it's I think it's about 30 people right now.
Oh, really? Oh, that many? Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's mainly just me and my wife. So I'm writing, directing, producing, and my wife's programming. But then, in addition to that, we brought in a whole load of freelancers to do all of the assets for the game. So we've had all the backgrounds now are finished actually, but we've had 4 people working on those: 2 concept artists, the line work artist, and the colorist. The colorist actually worked on Broken Sword 5, and then a character designer and a character development artist. We have a whole animation studio in Cardiff that's working on the game as well, who are just absolutely brilliant. Just like every time they send me a new animation clip, I'm just kind of jumping around the room at how cool it is. And then there's 6 voice artists in the demo, a graphic designer as well. So our graphic designer actually comes from theme parks, but he's done all of the manuscript and the diary and the newspaper and everything like that. So it's the numbers have jumped up quite a lot.
Okay, so when did you first kind of start making the game, and how did you actually get involved making it?
I think it was about 2.5 years ago, and it was funny actually. The way it started was I decided, right, I've wanted to make an adventure game since I was 8 years old. I'm gonna do it. Let's go for it. And I wrote out 3 stories of possible adventure games, and one of them had a bit of a gimmick to it, and I thought, well, I can't do that one first, so I had these other 2. One had a story that I really liked, one had a story that I thought was okay, so I decided to make the one where the story was just okay. And the reason for doing that was because I thought, okay, the one I really love, I shouldn't do that as my first adventure game because I won't be able to do it justice. The problem was, and this is the advice that you read about theme park, about video game design, is you'll make your first project a small project. And it did start off as a small project, but then it grew. And now I'm just I'm totally in love with the world that's in Foolish Mortals and everything. I'm so happy I decided to go with it. But yeah, that's how it started.
Yeah, so I don't think like you're not going to have any dead ends or deaths in this game, are you? Right?
No.
Okay, right.
Yeah, I've been really careful about making sure that there have been moments where my wife and I have been working in our office, and then suddenly I've gone, "Oh no! If you don't get this item, you can't." And then we've had to go, "Okay, right, we need to reconfigure stuff around to make sure." And yeah, I like your question before about if you don't fill the bottle up at the water fountain, how do you finish the demo? But actually, there's 3 places within the game where you can fill it up, and then a backup in case you don't. I didn't purposely choose to do multiple solutions to puzzles purely because I have to be really careful with our budget because we're trying to make a game that is on the scale and quality level of games way beyond our budget. And putting multiple solutions to puzzles in just wouldn't be an efficient use of the budget. But there are a few cases where it's come about that actually it won't cost us anything to give a few options of how things are done. So there are a few puzzles like that, and I'm going to be interested to see how people find them.
Okay, so like, is that one of the reasons for the Kickstarter? Just kind of like to to kind of just put all the finishing touches to it and actually make it like better.
Yeah, that's it. I've self-funded with a very understanding wife. I've self-funded all of the games so far, but we don't have the money that we need to do that last stretch. And it's primarily the last batch of animation that we need and getting voice actors for the full game as well. Those are the big 2 costs. But then we also want to look into, we need to test it, we need to port it, because we should be able to do PC, Mac, Linux, Android, iOS, and Switch. I can't wait. So I'm really looking forward to that. We should be able to do that, but we need the money to be able to put the time into making sure it works for all of those, and even just getting the hardware in some cases, like for the Nintendo Switch.
Yeah. So speaking of the Kickstarter, I'm kind of curious, like how, I mean, obviously, it seems like a Kickstarter takes a lot of planning and work put into it, but like I have no idea, like what kind of goes on behind the scenes. Like, could you explain, like, like what it's like to kind of put a Kickstarter together for a game like this?
Yeah, so we started figuring out the Kickstarter like 6 months ago because I knew that I wanted the big box for it. And the big thing was, what can I put in the big box that other people would really like in the same way that I like getting these big boxes and just going through, like when manuals used to have all that extra backstory and lore in it, and you get stuff like the Monkey Island code wheel. Have you heard the term feelies?
Feelies, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Feelies, yeah, the Infocom one, yeah. So that's what I wanted to do. But this isn't in like an indie adventure game, so we don't have the budget to just do endless stuff. So I had to be like really careful about, okay, well, what can I take from the game and make real? I knew I wanted an art of book because on the team we have a different person that's doing. We have 2 people that were doing the concept art for the backgrounds, and a different concept art for the characters. And they did fantastic artwork, but it would never be seen otherwise. And then we have a different artist for the line work, and just the black and white line work is just amazing. It looks so much like the Broken Sword line work. And then obviously the coloring as well. So I realized I had all of this art that would never be seen otherwise. So I had to do an art book to put all of that into it. With the puzzle book, that came from when I was designing the puzzles right at the beginning. I kind of played through a bunch of adventure games and tried to kind of figure out all the different archetypes of puzzle, mainly just so I could make the puzzles in Foolish Mortals all different and have a lot of variation, because I didn't want it just to be give this item to this character and they'll give you this item. I wanted a lot of different types of puzzle. And then the third book as well, the Diary of Murphy McAllen. I don't know if you ever had the old walkthroughs for Monkey Island 1 and 2 like the old grey ones with hint book written across. Now I remember taking my hint book into school when I was like 7 years old and just reading it over lunchtimes because it was fun because it was written as Guybrush Threepwood's diary, and I just like got pulled into it completely. So I thought, I want to do that for Murphy as well. So I thought that can be another book. And then also, just to jump to another thing as well, we also have some like really weird rewards as well, like the scent pack. I don't know if you've seen that.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's because I was telling one of my friends who works for a theme park smell company about the game, and he just pitched it to me. And this was only like 2 weeks ago. He just said, we could do some smells for your game. What do you think of that? And I just thought, oh well, the inspiration behind this game was theme park attractions. Having some theme park attraction smells available to people is just awesome. So we got the drawing, the all made up like as quickly as possible, and he sent over a bag of different tester smells. So I was going, does that smell like dead nettle with rotting fish, or does this one smell like dead nettle rotting fish? And and we put together these 7 smells, which are just it's really cool.
Yeah, because like you actually do describe the game. Like you said something like like you want it to feel like you've just stepped off the ride, like the Haunted Mansion ride. Yeah,
because that's how Monkey Island started for Ron Gilbert. He said that he wanted it to feel like you step out of your boat on Pirates of the Caribbean and get to explore that world. And I thought, well, that's a brilliant way to start an adventure game. Obviously, that's successful. Let's just steal that idea, but switch the ride to the Haunted Mansion instead.
So, when you were like compiling your like puzzle theory book, like did you learn a lot about kind of puzzle design and like what makes a good adventure game puzzle?
I hope I did. That'll be for people to judge, I think. But there is a lot of material out there that teaches you good. Like Ron Gilbert's, he has one article about why adventure games suck, and even though it was written like 1980, 88, 89 or something, it's still relevant. It's really useful to like stuff like present the locked door before you present the key, things like that. And then also his whole thing about puzzle dependency charts, physically drawing out how every puzzle interconnects, which we totally did with our puzzles, and we tweaked the puzzles in response to seeing how the puzzles flowed. There was one part in part 3 of the game, you have to collect 3 items, and we realized you couldn't really start collecting the third one until you'd done half of the second one. And we only had to change like the location of a character, and it meant that you could work on all 3 simultaneously. The things that the characters do in adventure games are really awful when you think about it. Like I was talking with my wife earlier about all the stuff Guybrush does in Woodtick on Scab Island in Monkey 2, and like he gets a chef fired, he takes a job with the innkeeper and then absconds. He cuts loose an innkeeper's pet. He saws off someone's wooden leg. He steals hammers from the carpenter, and he steals Wally's monocle. He's a horrible person, this character, but you kind of allow it to happen. And I was kind of going through Foolish Mortals and going, what does Murphy do that is just abhorrent? And hopefully people still think he's a nice guy.
Well, I mean, it's certainly, it feels like it's certainly a great time for adventure games now. I mean, there's a lot of new games coming out, and
there are like 4 games coming out in October that I can't wait to play. Also, Monkey Island coming out in the 2 weeks that I'm trying to get the Kickstarter and the demo finished was very distracting. Very, very distracting. When we were playing through it, I think I tweeted about this. When we were playing through Melee Island at the beginning of it, my wife turned to me and just went, "What did she say? Look at your little smiley face." I couldn't believe there was a new Monkey Island game that I got to play.
Okay, so so going forward, like you're just seeing how the Kickstarter pans out, and then like are you just you're just continuing with like so what stage are you at with game development now?
Well, so at the moment, the game can be played through start to finish. The whole game can be played through. It's just, and we've got all the backgrounds in the game, all the characters designed, but we're missing some of the final assets. So not all of, maybe a half to 2/3 of the animation is in. So that all needs doing. A lot of dialogue needs writing as well. That's going to be my main job when the Kickstarter finishes. I'm just going to be locked in the office, just writing dialogue. And then a lot of music and sound effects and everything, because that all needs to be kind of synchronized in with everything. But it is playable from start to finish, so we know how the game feels overall. The big thing, though, is that obviously to get it in on budget, we had to cut some things from the game. And if the Kickstarter does more than the goal that I've set for it, I definitely want to bring those things back in. The third stretch goal, the most faded out one at the moment, is to add a 6th voodoo ingredient into part 1. And there's a few like that where I'd like to put in, again, those things that I had to cut. And then, if you've watched the trailer as well, we based the trailer very much on the original Broken Sword trailer.
From Inklingwood Studios comes a merry and macabre point-and-click adventure game, Foolish Mortals.
From the makers of the highly acclaimed Lure of the Temptress and Beneath a Steel Sky comes a brand new adventure of epic proportions. Broken Sword, the Shadow of the Templars.
Yeah, there's a brilliant Broken Sword trailer where I'm sure the voice actor for it is a guy who voiced the introduction to a British cartoon series called Count Duckula.
Castle Duckula, home for many centuries to a dreadful dynasty of vicious vampire ducks, the Counts of Duckula.
But just the writing that they use, because they use the same the narration, that they use in the trailer is the same that's on the back of the box for Broken Sword, and it's so like verbose, but in a way that really pulls you in rather than off-puts you. It like pulls you into this world, like uncover their infernal secrets, reveal their monstrous plan, call upon your deepest strength and staunchest resolve to challenge these black hearts to betray the unspeakable truth. It's so good, and that's exactly what we tried to do with our trailer.
Uncover their infernal secrets, reveal their monstrous plan, call upon your deepest strength and staunch resolve to challenge these black hearts to betray the unspeakable truth.
What follows is a chilling chase through crumbling crypts, voodoo vaults, and the mysterious manor itself, in a supernatural battle that spans both life and death.
With the trailer, we put I think there are 8 backgrounds in the trailer and 6 characters, but the full game will have 70 backgrounds in it and 35 or 36 characters. So it is just like a tiny fragment of the full game. And as well, of course, the aim of the demo is to find 2 of 5 voodoo ingredients. So when you play the full game, you're going to have to find all 5 of those as well. So there's a lot more to the game beyond the demo.
Okay, so how long will the game be in the end? Like, will it just be kind of like a standard length adventure game, like 8 to 10 hours, something like that?
I think slightly longer. I mean, it's really tricky figuring out the playtime of different adventure games, because when I was
everyone's different, yeah.
Yeah, and also when I was trying to put the big box together, I remember a load of adventure games like the Curse of Monkey Island big box on the back. A barrel of gameplay estimated 30 plus hours.
And
I wonder how did they get that 30 hours from? Where? So yeah.
I mean that's like 30 hours, like doing everything in the game, like without a walkthrough. You probably get stuck a few times, you know.
Yeah, I've just glanced down at the Broken Sword one. That one says 2 CDs and over 50 hours of challenging gameplay.
What are the books under there? Are those strategy guides or are those just?
They are.
Oh, they are. Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. Really good. Discworld 2.
Ah, I think you need a strategy guide for the Discworld games, don't you? Like.
Yeah, especially right. Discworld 1. I didn't have the pocket money to buy the strategy guide, but whenever we went to the city near where I live and got to go to PC World, sorry, I'd just sit in the aisle, reading through the walkthrough and trying to remember as much as I possibly could from it. And I also remember begging my mum to let us call the premium rate hint line for Monkey Island 2. And I'm sure that phone call went, "Welcome to the hint line for Monkey Island 2, LeChuck's Revenge. If you want help with part 1, please..." And then eventually get to the puzzle you needed help with. And it would be, pick up the blah, 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 walk to the brother, give it to the brother, walk to the... And my mum and I would be holding the phone, both trying to listen into it. And just, when it finished, just turn to each other and go, "Did you hear any of that?" We're going to have to phone again.
Okay. And then you think like you're looking to release the game like sometime next year.
Yeah, it'll definitely be next year sometime. Hopefully summer next year, but I'm not entirely sure because I've never done this before. And there's things like we've estimated, this will take this amount of time, and then we realize it does not take that amount of time. It takes a lot longer.
Okay, so like, any last words about like the Kickstarter or the game, or like like where people can support you and find you and all of that?
Yeah, so the main one is Twitter. That's where I'm kind of posting about the game mostly. But we also have a Discord if people want to discuss it more there. It's kind of fun to kind of go more in depth onto things on the Discord. And then just with the Kickstarter, people please play the demo. And if you like it, please back the Kickstarter, and also just sharing it as much as possible. The more people that see it, the better. And like I said, if we manage to get past the goal that we have, all of the stretch goals are going to be to improve the game for everyone. So everyone will get more puzzles, more backgrounds, more music, more animation if we manage to hit them. But I think it's that thing of I've had this dream of making an adventure game since I was 8 years old, and putting all of the time into it as well. If this wasn't my job, I'd be putting this time into it as my hobby. So I think I'm very fortunate that I get to do this full time, which is what it requires at the moment. But I hope it's a success. I hope it's a success kind of for the players, but also financially, because I'd love to do it again. I'd love to make another adventure game after this.
Stopping that arcane evil will require not only reaching the treasure first, but also finding out what happened in the house all those years ago. In order to do that, perhaps you'll need to die too. Foolish mortals.